I used to think silence meant peace. A quiet Sunday morning with coffee and the paper. Her sitting across from me, reading some book about French gardens or women who run with wolves, something thoughtful. The kind of stillness that feels like contentment. But lately, silence has felt different. Heavier. Jenna, my wife of 12 years, was always composed. Never the emotional type. It's one of the things I used to admire about her. The calm to my fire. But over the past few months, she grew too quiet. Not the comfortable kind. The guarded kind. The kind that comes when someone's always calculating their next move. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. People change. Life gets busy. Stress, work, family. But little things began to click together like puzzle pieces. She started locking her phone. I'd walk into the room, and she'd tilt the screen away. Laughed a little less. Said, "I'm fine," a little more. And when I touched her, just a hand on her back while she was doing dishes, she flinched. I work with my hands. I notice the small things, the tilt of a board, the grain of a nail. I know when something's misaligned. And Jenna, she was misaligned. Then there were the disappearances. Book club, she'd say. But she came home with no books. Work drinks. But her eyes never smelled like alcohol, just the faint trace of men's cologne, nothing I ever wore. Still, I didn't explode. I didn't accuse. That's not how I work. Instead, I started observing. Tracking. Not like a stalker, but like a man who's been made a fool and refuses to stay one. That's when I found her. Angela. She used to be Jenna's best friend. Haven't seen her around in years. Thought she'd moved. But a few weeks back, she messaged me on Facebook. Said she needed to talk, about Jenna. Said, "You're not crazy, David. She's not who you think she is anymore." Angela and I met at a diner. She looked nervous. Pale, like someone carrying too much truth. "I didn't know if I should tell you this," she said, hands shaking over her coffee. "But I can't watch her do this to you anymore." That's when the dam broke. She told me everything, or at least, the start of it. Jenna had been reconnecting with someone from her past. Not just any man, my brother, Mark. I laughed when she said it. Not because it was funny, but because my brain couldn't process it. Mark and I hadn't been close in years. Family politics, resentment. But betrayal? That was a new level. A layer I didn't even know existed. Angela gave me screenshots. Messages. Pictures. Dates. The night Jenna said she was sick and stayed in, she was at Mark's cabin. I didn't yell. Didn't throw anything. Just nodded. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Angela looked down. Because I was the other one. For a while. Until I realized I was being used. She wasn't just an informant. She was a survivor. And now, maybe, my ally. That night, Jenna came home late again. I was sitting in the living room with the lights low. Just watching. She smelled like wood smoke and perfume. She said nothing. Walked right past me. "Book club?" I asked without turning my head. She froze. For just a second. Then smiled like nothing was wrong. "Yeah. Sorry it went long." I smiled too. But in my chest, a plan was starting to form. I wouldn't confront her yet. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. This wasn't a battle, it was a war. And I was done being the blind soldier. You ever feel a chill in the room when nothing's changed but everything has? That was the moment I knew something in my life had shifted. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just, cold. Like a draft through a house I built with my bare hands. My name's David. I'm 42, a contractor out of Pennsylvania, and this is the story of how I watched the life I'd built start to splinter, quietly, at first. Then with precision. Jenna thought she was winning. That's the thing about liars, they get comfortable. Too comfortable. Especially when they think you're still in the dark. She didn't know I'd stopped reacting and started recording. That night, after she drifted off to sleep beside me, still wearing the same practiced smile she wore in public, I got up. Moved like a ghost through the house we built together. Every wall, every joint, every floorboard I knew like muscle memory. And yet, the home suddenly felt foreign. Like I was squatting inside someone else's dream. I slipped into my office, quietly opened my locked drawer, and pulled out a fresh black notebook. I wrote at the top in clean block letters, the plan. Step 1, verify the rot. Angela had already cracked the door. Now it was time to push it wide open. I started slow, checking Jenna's old social media posts, backing up photos she thought she'd deleted. I cross-referenced dates, messages, hotel stays, and work trips. I built a timeline, day by day. The lies weren't clever, just layered, small enough that if you weren't paying attention, they'd slip past. But together, a pattern emerged. And Mark, his name kept showing up in the cracks. Mark, my older brother. My best man at the wedding. The guy who held my shoulder when our mom died. He always had a way of taking more than he earned, credit, affection, even Dad's respect. And now he'd taken her. But what Jenna didn't know was that I'd kept every voicemail, every text, every note from the past 12 years. I'd backed them up in the cloud under a fake file name, Blueprints, 2011, Structural Integrity. Fitting, right? Step 2, assemble allies. Angela and I started meeting more often. Not always to talk about Jenna. Sometimes we just sat in silence, coffee between us, not needing to fill the air. That's how I knew I could trust her. You know, she said one night, they started this years ago. I walked in on them once. Not that, but close. She said they were drunk. Swore it was a joke. But I knew better. I ended the friendship a few months later. Figured you'd see it for yourself eventually. I nodded. I didn't want to see. No one does, she said. But now you do. So, what's next? I smiled, just a flicker. I don't burn houses, Angela. I pull the foundation out from under them. Step 3, set the stage. I started acting normal again. Smiled when Jenna walked in. Asked how her day went. Even cooked dinner once or twice. She looked relieved, mistaking calm for forgiveness. The irony didn't escape me. I also started planting questions with friends and family. Innocent ones, meant to test the waters. You seen Mark lately? I asked my cousin Matt during a poker night. He looked up from his cards. Not really. He's been hanging around the city more. Think he got some new gig. Real estate or some side hustle. Hard to tell with him. Ha, I said. Thought Jenna mentioned they bumped into each other last week. Matt raised an eyebrow. Really? He told me he was in Jersey all week. There it was again. Mismatched stories. Step 4, begin psychological disassembly. I started changing small routines. Left the house earlier. Came home later. Locked my phone. Started working out again. Bought new clothes. Nothing flashy, just different enough to be noticed. Jenna picked up on it fast. One night, she asked, "You seeing someone?" I laughed, too hard maybe. No, but I appreciate the compliment. She watched me like a hawk after that. Her insecurity was a crack I could slip through. Angela had a theory. She thinks she's losing control. You've always been steady, predictable. Now you're not. That's scarier to her than being caught. Angela wasn't just helping me. She was becoming something else. A mirror, maybe. Or maybe just someone who understood what it meant to be betrayed and still keep your composure. Step 5, the wiretap. This part was tricky. Illegal, if done wrong. But Jenna wasn't careful. I didn't need spyware or spyware apps. I just left an old iPhone in our bedroom on record before I left for a work trip. Told her I'd be gone for 2 nights. I was really an hour away, staying at a friend's cabin. She called Mark. She laughed. And then she said something that made my stomach twist into knots. He has no idea. And even if he does, he won't do anything. That's the thing with David, he needs me more than I ever needed him. I played that part back at least a dozen times. Not out of pain, but precision. Need? She had it backward. Step 6, the opening move. I printed everything, timelines, call logs, GPS data. I walked into my attorney's office the following week and laid it all out on the table. This is surgical, he said. You sure you want to do this quietly? Quiet isn't weak, I said. Quiet is permanent. He nodded. Then let's get to work. Jenna still thought I didn't know. That was her first mistake. I'd been watching from the shadows, collecting facts while she played pretend. She wore her lies like perfume, light enough to pass unnoticed, but strong enough if you stood close. And I was standing very, very close now. Angela and I had started meeting more often. Not always to talk about Jenna, sometimes just to sit and say nothing at all. But she came through with something big. Screenshots. Private messages. A blurry selfie of Jenna and Mark together in a bar 2 cities over. Time-stamped. That same night, Jenna told me she was at book club. Right. I didn't say a word to her. Just smiled, made dinner, and washed the dishes while she scrolled her phone. The best lies are the ones told in peace. So I gave her nothing but calm. Then I called my lawyer. Josh Hayward was sharp. Military cut hair, direct tone, no fluff. I showed him what I had, text logs, GPS data, photos. He didn't flinch. You want to go scorched earth? He asked. No, I replied. I want it quiet. But thorough. He nodded. That's more dangerous. That weekend, I started changing patterns. I got up earlier. Started going to the gym. Put a password on my phone. Jenna noticed, of course. You've been different lately, she said one morning. Just focusing on myself, I replied. Figured it's time. She smiled, but I saw the flicker in her eyes. Uncertainty. That was the opening I needed. Mark and I hadn't spoken in months. So when I texted him out of the blue, grab a drink soon, I knew it would rattle him. He responded an hour later, busy these days, maybe next week. Coward. So I sent him a photo. Just one. Him and Jenna. At that bar. His arm barely visible, her hand on his chest. Captioned. You sure next week's not too far away? He left it on read. The real move came Monday. Jenna came home to a manila envelope on the kitchen table. Inside. Printed texts. Photos. A typed letter from my attorney. No yelling. No accusations. Just the truth, laid bare. When she saw it, she didn't speak. Her face turned white. She sat down and tried to catch her breath. You think you're punishing me? She finally said, voice shaking. No, I said. I'm just done pretending. Jenna didn't cry when she read the envelope. She didn't scream. She just sat there, quiet, staring down at the table like it had betrayed her too. The weight of the evidence wasn't just legal, it was psychological. Every photo, every text, every timestamp was a crack in the image she'd spent years curating. Loving wife. Loyal friend. Professional. All unraveling in complete silence. "Do the kids know?" she asked after a long pause. "Not yet," I said. "And if you cooperate, maybe they never have to." "That's up to you." She nodded slowly, her hands trembling. "You're going to divorce me?" It wasn't a question. I didn't answer. Some things don't need to be said. My lawyer filed the papers that Thursday. We requested temporary exclusive use of the home, on grounds of emotional distress and infidelity. The court agreed. Jenna had 14 days to move out. The next week, movers came while she stood in the driveway in her expensive coat and heels, trying to look unbothered. But she wasn't wearing makeup. And I noticed she'd dropped weight. Stress shows in the face first. Angela was the one who tipped me off that Jenna had already begun spinning the story. "He just changed one day," she was saying. Became distant. Cold. Controlling. But by then, it was too late. The circle had started closing around her. Mark tried to text me. Said he was sorry and didn't mean for things to happen that way. Didn't mean. You don't accidentally sleep with your brother's wife over multiple weekends, across state lines. I left him on read. But then, something I didn't expect. His ex reached out. Melanie. We'd barely spoken in years. But she'd heard whispers and wanted to talk. Said Mark had a habit of crossing lines. Said she believed me. "Let me know if you need anything," she told me. I did. And she delivered. Melanie handed over emails. One, in particular, sealed the next phase of my plan. An old message chain from years back, when Jenna and Mark had first reconnected. Before things turned physical. Before anyone suspected anything. In it, Jenna wrote. "He doesn't challenge me. He's predictable. That's what makes it so easy." She meant me. Predictable. Comfortable. Safe. She thought that meant I was weak. Back in court, we finalized the preliminary custody agreement. I got primary residential custody of our daughter, Ava. Jenna didn't fight it, maybe out of guilt, maybe because the fight was already lost. Her lawyer tried to argue for joint custody, but the judge didn't like the moral character issues, especially not with everything we'd documented. And I made sure Jenna knew exactly how that looked on paper. I didn't go for public destruction. No messy Facebook posts. No shouting matches. Instead, I started living. Angela and I didn't rush anything, we weren't even together. But she became the only person I could talk to without explaining every pause, every sigh. She knew what it meant to be betrayed, and still stand up the next morning. We'd meet for walks. Quiet lunches. Coffee at the same cafe Jenna and I used to go to. Maybe that was petty. Or maybe it was closure. One evening, Jenna showed up at the house unannounced, 2 weeks after the final filing. She stood on the porch like a stranger. Not like the woman who once shared my bed. Just, someone I used to know. "I don't know how it got this far," she said, voice breaking. I looked at her. Not angry. Not bitter. "I do," I replied. She blinked. "So that's it?" I nodded. "That's it." I stood in the bathroom one morning, staring at myself in the mirror. Same face. Same tired eyes. But something had changed beneath it all. Not just anger. Not grief. It was clarity. The kind that only comes after everything familiar burns to the ground. I was no longer asking why. Now, I was asking what next. Life after Jenna felt strangely still. I thought there'd be more noise, more mess. But no. The house was quiet. Our daughter, Ava, adapted quicker than I expected. Kids are sharp. She didn't ask many questions, just looked at me one night and said, "I like it better when it's just us." That hit harder than anything Jenna ever said. Angela and I were still taking things slow. But something was forming. Something steady. She came over once to drop off a folder, more old texts from Jenna's college days, stuff she had kept for years and forgotten about. Just innocent girl talk, mostly. But one thread stood out. It was a message from Jenna to a friend. "If I ever feel stuck, I'll just blow it all up. Not even sorry. I need to be the one holding the match." Angela looked at me as I read it. "I think she always planned it," she said softly. "Some people don't betray you by accident." I nodded. "Some people call it self-discovery. I call it demolition." Jenna wasn't doing well. Angela heard from mutuals that she'd been quietly dropped from a couple social circles. One of her friends, Julia, posted something vague on Instagram. Funny how some people cry about consequences they created. I didn't share it. Didn't even screenshot it. I just let it sit there, floating in the digital current. Mark? He disappeared completely. Word got around that he sold his condo and moved south, some consulting job in a city where no one knew his name. I didn't care where he went. I had no intention of ever seeing him again. Then, out of nowhere, Jenna asked to meet. Said she wanted to apologize in person. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a quiet park, public enough to keep it civil. She looked tired. Not broken. But dulled. Like a painting left in the sun too long. "I thought I'd have time to fix it," she said, avoiding my eyes. "You did," I replied. She nodded. "I think I missed the version of us I imagined." That line. That was vintage Jenna, romanticizing the wreckage she caused. "I don't miss pretending," I said. "That's the difference." She didn't argue. Before she left, she said something that stuck with me. "I always thought you needed me to hold everything together." I looked at her. Calm. Measured. "I didn't need glue, Jenna," I said. "I needed someone who wouldn't light matches." And then I turned around and walked back to my truck. Never looked back. There's a moment, right after the dust settles, where you realize you're not rebuilding. You're redesigning. Everything I thought I'd lost. That was an illusion. What I was really doing was clearing space. Making room for something better. Something honest. And most importantly, mine. Jenna was officially gone. The house was legally mine now. I'd bought out her share with savings she didn't know I had. The divorce decree came back clean, no alimony, split assets, Ava with me full-time. She still had visitation, but she rarely used it. Not because of court orders. Because the world she used to own no longer responded to her the same way. Friends stopped calling. Colleagues kept their distance. The strong woman who made hard choices narrative didn't hold up under daylight. Truth has a way of doing that, especially when it's backed by receipts. Angela was around more often now. We weren't putting labels on anything. We didn't have to. She'd show up with Thai food on nights I worked late. Sometimes, we'd watch documentaries and fall asleep on opposite ends of the couch. Other times, she'd ask questions no one else thought to ask. "You ever miss her?" Not the betrayal. Just, the person you thought she was. I took a breath before answering. Sometimes. Like missing a house you grew up in, before the walls started leaking. Angela nodded like she'd been there too. And I think she had, in her own way. Then came the letter. It arrived in a plain envelope. No return address. Just my name, handwritten in Jenna's tight cursive. Inside was a single page. No apologies. No explanations. Just a sentence. I was pregnant once, 8 years ago. It wasn't yours. I lost it before you ever knew. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I was shocked, but because I wasn't. And that terrified me more than the words. I didn't tell Angela right away. I didn't need to. She saw something in my face a few nights later. You got closure, she said. But not peace. I nodded. Maybe peace isn't a place. Maybe it's just accepting the damage and choosing to keep building. That's still a blueprint, she said. Just a new one. So I leaned into the rebuild. I took on more projects, actual ones. I started a small renovation business on the side. Not because I needed the money, but because I liked seeing broken things become whole again. Not perfect. Just, whole. Ava helped me repaint the upstairs hallway one weekend. Why are we changing it, Dad? She asked. Because the old color didn't feel right anymore. Jenna didn't contact me again after the letter. Angela said she might someday, but by then, it wouldn't matter. People like her, she said, they always think there's a version of you still waiting in the wings. But they forget, you left the stage. There are two kinds of revenge. The kind that burns everything, including you. And the kind that's so quiet, they don't even know it's happened, until they realize no one's listening anymore. I chose the second. 6 months had passed since the divorce was finalized. The legal war was over. The social dust had settled. And for the first time in years, I woke up not wondering who I was sleeping beside, or what truth I might stumble into by accident. But there was still one piece left. Jenna still had her mask. Her professional veneer. Her curated image in certain circles, especially the one that mattered most to her, the local nonprofit board. Her redemption arc. The single mother narrative she sold after the fall. She was rebranding. I didn't want revenge for the sake of revenge. I wanted truth to catch up with her. I reached out to someone who'd quietly offered help months ago. Remember Melanie? Mark's ex. Turned out, she had friends in high places. Legal. Media. Even on the board Jenna now served on. She didn't want money. Or credit. Just the same thing I wanted, a reckoning. It started with a background ethics check. Standard procedure for high-level board renewal. They always ask for references. But this time, they got something better. Anonymously delivered. Neatly organized. With screenshots. Audio snippets. Copies of messages between Jenna and Mark. The one where she joked that some people were made to be lied to. Angela helped organize it. Said she wanted to close this chapter the same way it started, with precision. 2 weeks later, Jenna was quietly removed from the board's website. No announcement. No farewell post. Just, gone. She didn't lose her job. No public scandal. No headlines. Just silence. Doors closing. Messages not returned. Brunches uninvited. And that, I realized, is what real exile looks like. Not a public takedown. A quiet vanishing. The last time I saw her was in the grocery store. She looked older. Tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. We locked eyes for just a moment. No smiles. No wave. Just recognition. Not of a lover. Not even of an enemy. Just someone who used to know someone else. She reached for a carton of eggs. I turned down the next aisle. Angela met me for dinner that night. It was raining. We didn't talk about Jenna. Or Mark. Or betrayal. We talked about future things. Ava's art project. The cabin we were thinking of renting that summer. Whether or not to paint the kitchen. The past didn't own me anymore. It was just ash in the wind. You know, People think revenge is this loud, dramatic thing. But I've learned the most powerful revenge is peace. Real peace. The kind you earn. Not through rage, but through restraint. Not by winning a war, but by walking away from one, and letting them stand alone in the ruins they built.